welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem,
where we talk to you about all of the monsters, whether they're human or fuzzy, 4-legged or 2-legged or 6-legged.
Or scaly.
Yeah.
Or slimy.
Tailed, taloned.
Feathered.
And mysteries and various types of mayhem. Just a warning at the top here that the content may not be entirely appropriate for small ears, sensitive ears, work
ears,
all that good stuff. There's probably going to be profanity. There's going to be talk about, murder, stuff like that.
Yep.
So just be aware of where you're listening to it.
Yes.
Who are you?
Who am I? Oh my God, that is that's an existential question for a Sunday afternoon when it feels like the wind is going to blow us back to Kansas. Oh, and I'll be talking about Kansas yet again today.
Oh my gosh.
For a boring place, Kansas is a fascinating place.
That's because there's nothing else to do there.
That could be.
Except for make up monsters and hauntings.
That could be. Oh, wait. No, I'm not going back to Kansas. I'm going back to Arkansas this time.
Arkansas.
Kansas will be in a couple of weeks. Anyhow, I'm MB Partlow. I'm a writer. I'm a lunatic. I'm a parent of 2 children, 2 cats and a dog. I'm like,
what else?
Big laugh, big ass.
Okay. All right. That could be your motto. We could have t-shirts made.
Or a big laugh and an ass to match.
There you go. Yeah.
And who are you?
My laugh is not as big as yours, but it's quite
is
abrupt and squawky. I am a grouchy writer. That's pretty much been my identity this week. So, horror author extraordinaire. Sure. Let's go with that.
I like it.
Oh, right. You can find me on thewarriormuse.com, including books that I'm in or that are only mine. I don't know. My house is, as usual, tomb silent, so I may be a family person still. I may not. I don't know. I haven't seen a teenager yet today.
I mean, your kids are younger than mine, and mine are noisier than yours. Of course, yes, thing 2 and thing 1 are both at home because as we record this, it's close to Christmas, so they're home for the holidays.
Yeah. Oh, my daughter is going to be making a Yule log. I've never had a Yule log, and I was like, I want to go buy a Yule log from somewhere. Jeffrey Marigold has one, and then my daughter was like, I want to make one, so she looked up how to make a vegan one for me.
Nice.
Fantastic. So I've ordered the groceries.
Fancy.
I know.
Take a picture.
I probably will. I try to remember to do that. Before we get started into conversational things, I had a little something I was going to address today. And by the time this airs, it's in the thing that it's in response to will be a month old.
And long forgotten.
That's right. Not by me. I hold grudges. We had a little comment that we should not talk so much at the beginning of our podcast. And here's the thing. When we started out, we didn't intend to talk for half an hour at the beginning. That's actually never our plan. That's just been our hard cutoff when we realized we've talked for that long. And maybe it's the pandemic and the fact that this is the only time we see each other, let alone other human beings that don't live in the house with us. But I will say that it's not going to hurt our feelings if this part is not for you and you want to fast forward to the actual content. We get it. So check 20 minutes, then check 30 minutes. Just fast forward right through it. Totally understandable if it's not your thing. And, I'll just say we appreciate anybody listening, whether they like this part or not. That's totally cool. But a piece of advice I got before I started a podcast from Emery and Rich, who does the horroraddicts.com, or is it horroraddicts.net? Anyway, she has a podcast. And they're also a publishing house. They do all kinds of things. But the best piece of advice that I got starting this was be yourselves. That's what we're doing.
Which is why you get a lot of weirdness and a lot of laughter and a lot of foul language.
And a lot of babbling and all that good stuff. That's just us. And we're not going to change to make somebody else happy. So, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Nope. I think you said it well. I'm sorry. I was a little distracted because my phone rang. So, and it was from it was from Thing 2, and I was like, she knows I'm recording. Why would she call? What's wrong? I just got the response, butt dial. So I was like, all right.
Oh, okay. That's all right then.
No problem.
Yeah. And hey, we appreciate anytime anybody giving us feedback as well. But we're going to be who we are. So.
Moving that because it's wet and I don't want it to stick to your desk.
Don't stick it to my desk.
I'm trying not to.
Do what you must.
I'm flailing about.
That's out there to you guys too. Do what you must.
I want to tell you what I read this week because it was amazing. Do you remember a movie called Please Don't Eat the Daisies?
I remember hearing about it. I don't believe I saw it.
I mean, I don't know that I ever saw the movie. It's quite old, and it starred, I don't even remember who. I didn't look it up. Maybe Doris Day. I mean,
Rock Hudson and Taylor Swift.
I don't know. Abraham Lincoln said, you can't trust everything you read on the internet. So anyway, it was a movie. So, but I read, the book is by Jean Kerr, or Carr. I don't know how she pronounces it, Kerr. It was flippin' hilarious. It was one of the funniest things. It is really short, but it was one of the funniest things I've ever read.
Oh.
And she just talks about why she became a writer, because she didn't want to get up in the morning. So she had to do something that earned enough money so they could hire a nanny.
That's nice. Okay. I'm glad she made enough money to hire a nanny by writing. Well, some of us aren't.
This was back in the day.
Back in the day.
And it just, the way she describes her kids and talks about her kids, and it was just really light, but really, really well done. And she has a very good sense of humor. So I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a short, light read, it was really good.
Okay. I finished the book that I'd started last week, which was K.A. Olgren's Flipped.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite cute. It was clever. House Flip is a good place for a mystery to be found. Lord knows there's antiques, there's things hidden in walls, there's all sorts of good stuff you can do with a series like that. So she should have some awesome stuff coming up. But and there's romance.
Gotta love that.
Gotta love romance, especially if it's not a guy that you want to stab through the face when you're reading it, because some women have really different tastes than me.
Yes, I hear you. Or sometimes the character is just written in such a way that you're like, why does anyone find that appealing?
I know. Wow, this guy's total dick to her the whole time. This is a great romance. I know this is fulfilling all of my fantasies. No, it wasn't like that, to be clear. But yeah. So
it was not 50 Shades of Flipping.
It was not 50 Shades of Flipping. Lord knows you could do that too.
So have you watched The Wilds on Amazon Prime?
I just started it. I was actually going to bring that up. Look at that.
I'm further into it, and I sucked Thing 2 into it.
Okay.
And it was, how far into it are you?
I think I watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay. It's these teenage girls who crash land. They're flying to some kind of enrichment weekend in Hawaii, or at least that's what they think. Mm-hmm. And their plane crash lands, and they wash up on this island. What do you want to add? Because I don't want to add more than you've already seen. Because I'm on like episode 9.
How much does it say in the previews? Like, what's a spoiler? So I can say that I know for when you see the previews that it is already shown as more.
Yes.
Than what they've been told it is and what you think it is. It's not Castaway. It's a little bit Lost. It's a little bit Cabin in the Woods.
It wasn't an accident.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. There's some interesting dynamics with the girls.
Oh, it just gets better.
Oh, yeah?
Because, Thing 2, who is 21, what she liked about it was she said the relationships between the girls, or when you see the girls with their peers, she said is very, very realistic. And she said also their relationships with the various adults in their lives also read as very realistic.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like, and I've only watched 2, so who knows if the pattern repeats for me, but it seems like they have a different girl telling her story of what happened each one, which is kind of, it seems like a slow lead up so that you won't know if, like, who dies, if anybody dies, if all of that.
Right.
So you get this girl and you get her story and then they stop it so that you're not getting too much information as you go.
Yes.
So yeah, that one's good.
It's quite suspenseful in its way.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, wait.
Well, because they're implying things. Because the one in the second episode is talking about a certain girl, and they're like, well, I'm not going to tell you what. I'm not going to talk to you about what happened to her.
Mm-hmm. So The Wilds. Anyway, The Wilds. Check it out. I really like it. Thing 2 really likes it. You don't hate it. So.
No, I like it so far. It's intriguing. So it's drawn me in enough. Not enough that I remember to go back to it, I guess. Because I started watching it a few days ago. And just watched 2 that night, and then I haven't gone back.
Well, I'm kind of stuck now because Thing 1 is home, and I'm like, I'm 9 episodes in. I am not going to rewatch 8 episodes.
Oh my
to
gosh.
catch, and I'm like, I'll just wait. However, Letterkenny
it is the
comes
new
out
season?
on Boxing Day.
Oh, okay.
Saturday.
Okay.
Woohoo! So by the time this airs, I will have watched the new season at least once.
Right. All the way through at least once.
At least once.
All right. Well, that's books and TV. Have you watched any good movies?
The other night I wanted to watch comedy, and I think I did, and I have no memory of what I watched.
Yeah.
That might have been the night I was looking for a movie and wound up starting The Wilds instead.
Okay. That makes sense.
What have you watched? Or have
been
you watched
kind
anything?
But I did watch, there's a Creep Show special on Shudder right now, and it's an SA meeting, Shapeshifters Anonymous, and it's pretty amusing.
So what is the title? SA?
No, it's just Creep Show special. So it's just parts cheesy, and it's funny because some of the costumes are super cheesy. So it's not just werewolves. They're not just lycanthropes, and they're therianthropes. And there's a were-cheetah and a were-turtle. Or, sorry, a were-tortoise. Yes, that's right. So on and so forth. A were-boar. This guy doesn't know what he is, so they're like touching things to him. They're like, here, rub it on. Do you feel anything? No, it's catnip. Here's some wolfsbane and stuff like that.
Oh, so he hasn't changed? Or he's
No,
changed?
they don't remember what they've done when they changed. So he thinks he's the serial killer being splashed across the TV.
Oh.
But in his therianthrope form. So, and then they're under siege from Santas because apparently...
You can't see the
I'm
look
not even I'm not even gonna give you. I can't. So anyway, yeah.
Is it a series or
It's just one episode. So they have a Creep Show series on Shudder, but this was just a special Christmas thing they put out. It's like 46 minutes long.
It sounds interesting. Do you ever find out what he is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to see them change.
Okay.
Which is, yeah.
Well, that would be kind of fun.
The were-cheetah is like a gorgeous costume, and then.
And then there's the were-tortoise.
And then some of the costumes are so shitty. But the were-cheetah that's a good costume.
Well, alrighty
That's all
then.
I'll say. But yeah, that's what I watched. I really don't. I know I've watched a billion things, and nothing has been good enough to register.
To stick.
No. So, but that one I did enjoy. We just watched that last night.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, and you are responsible for half of the people we know eating chili this week.
Yes. Because I've known that there were all these varieties for a long time. Apparently people did not know this. That there's, I started making Texas chili when I was on keto because beans are actually high carb.
Right.
So I knew about Texas chili, no beans, no tomatoes, if you make it correctly. The recipe I found was from some restaurant in, I think, Texas and Oklahoma, and they put vinegar over it. If you eat there at the restaurant, they will pour vinegar over the top. So I tried that, and it was actually good. So I just like chili.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, so then I posted asking people how to eat your chili, and my goodness, that just blew right up.
And I had heard, because, Thing 1 lives in Kansas now, that it's a thing, you get a bowl of chili and a big cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
And you peel the cinnamon roll and dip it in the chili as you're eating, which I was like, I'm not going to run out and try that tomorrow. But the thing that surprised me was the people who dip a peanut butter sandwich in their chili. Which is
that one was a surprise to me, I think.
But I've heard of dipping your peanut butter sandwich in tomato soup, so it's not dissimilar.
Oh, I haven't heard of that either. I'm all about grilled cheese and tomato soup. But yeah, no, I don't I don't think I'll be doing the peanut butter thing anytime soon, but I don't think it sounds horrific or anything like that.
No.
Just not my thing. I'm all about, well, cornbread with my chili. Somebody once brought over, apparently in Minnesota it was a thing to do cinnamon roll with all manner of things, including like hot dishes and stuff like they make. So, but yeah, they were like, yeah, we eat it with chili. And that's when I found out about that whole thing. So we just saved it for dessert when the meal got brought over. But it's just funny because I had seen a couple people making chili. It's winter, and then all of a sudden this week I'm just tagged in thing after thing of somebody. I'm having chili now. And even people who I think saw it and got inspired, they may not remember who posted it.
Well, I had been thinking I was either going to make a big pot of red sauce, Italian meat sauce, or I was going to make chili. And I was kind of on the fence. Which one do I feel like having? And then I read that post and I was like, chili it is. And as I'm making it, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, I hope there were beans in the cupboard. So I put in pinto beans, cannellini beans, and garbanzo beans.
All right.
Because that was what I had.
Yeah. I actually ordered stuff to make, just beans and cornbread for the first time in forever. I couldn't find any ham hocks online, so I'm doing sausage. And I've done that before. But yeah, I grew up on Southern food, and I got my gallbladder out like a year and a half ago or whatever, and for the first time in 20 years, I can eat beans without exorcist vomiting. So I had to look up recipes because I didn't remember how I used to make it.
Beans and cornbread is the best.
Yeah. So I'm making some.
So good.
And I'm making the kind that's like the Jiffy mix with creamed corn in it and real corn and sour cream and all this stuff. So, yeah.
I like simple cornbread. I like a big variety of cornbread, but being from the Northeast, I make Yankee cornbread, which means we put sweetener in it, preferably maple syrup. Whereas Southerners tend not to they don't want sweet cornbread. Right. That's a Yankee thing. Oh. Okay. Sugar in my cornbread. I put, what was it? Somebody said?
I think we've always put a little sugar in the cornbread. So, I don't know. It's the Okie way. I have no idea. Or my mom started adding it. My grandpa was the Okie. So, who knows?
And we got dinner from Tong Tong. We got Korean food from Tong Tong. Okay. It was so good. Nikki got, what was it? It was something and pork belly. Squid and pork belly. Ooh. She loved it.
Listen, I was going to try and yum it.
You were just like, oh. But I will say, when she was heating up her leftovers the next day, I was walking around the kitchen going, what is that smell?
Oh, no.
It wasn't, the first night when she ate it, it wasn't like that. But she nuked it, and I was just like, wow, that is pungent. But I had the grilled chicken that I always get, the spicy grilled chicken, and it was delightful. And the sticky rice.
I don't even think we did anything cool for dinner this week. Not to say we didn't eat out. It was just subs here. I don't know what I had. What I want to do, I'm going to have a date night with my husband, and I want steak because I haven't had steak in forever. And I can get bison steak from, what is that? Ted Montana's or whatever it's called.
Montana Grill.
Ted's Montana Grill. And just have a date in our room. And I'm not talking about being dirty. Not that it won't happen. But I just want to do something where somebody can't just walk in to get water or walk through the kitchen or,
Yeah, a date night. I get it.
Because they may stay in their room all the time, but there's no expectation of
that they need to.
I have any time to myself. Yeah.
Yes. The other day I was working on something. I mean, I was working. I wasn't just, sitting around doing nothing. And all of a sudden, everybody was in the living room where I was working on my laptop. Everybody needed to talk to me at that minute. And I was like, why? Why? Or, that moment when you sit down with a cup of tea in your hand and you close your eyes to think about things for a minute. I have more cups of tea go cold that way. Oh, just kind of, just going to think about things for just a minute.
Yeah, I've stopped setting the timer on the tea and leaving it on the kitchen counter. I take it with me.
Smart.
And set the timer, because otherwise, I'm gonna be like do, and I might usually hear the timer. I do this with food too at this point. Hear the timer, and I'm like, okay, I just want to finish this section of my schoolwork, right?
Yep.
Because I hate stopping in the middle of a lesson. And then it's like, hey, did the timer go off already? I think I remember that it did.
I get, honey, just a reminder that you have a cup of tea steeping up here. I'm like, I poured that 3 hours ago.
Right? I don't think it's...
Sometimes I heat it up.
Oh, no. You see that meme where she says, I dated a guy from England, and whenever he pissed me off, I would microwave myself a cup of tea and stare him in the eyes the whole time it was going. I love that every time I see it.
Oh my God. I found out we have hot water at work, and I can make tea at work, and they're just like...
You've worked there like a year.
I know. Well, because somebody said to me, you can heat up water in the microwave. And I was like, well, yes, and I could piss on my foot.
That's the big stoop.
I was like, thanks, I'm good. So now they're kind of like, wow, you really can drink a lot of tea in a day, can't you? Yes, I can.
I can take it down with the best of them.
So...
I've had a pretty uneventful week other than all that. We've had some teenage angst that I'm not going to talk about out here. So, and then school stuff. I'm taking a finance class, and I realized that even though I did accounting stuff, I fucking hate finance.
Yes.
I don't care.
I'm with you.
I don't want to do the stock market. I don't want to
I hear you.
Nominal rates. And that's the crap I'm learning right now. But I think when I'm done with it, it may be my last algebra involved type class for this degree. I hope. I did get him to bump that one up, and I took the next finance one ahead of the other classes I was supposed to take. And I was like, I just want to get it done. I just want to be done.
I just want to never take these finance classes ever again.
Nope. And I had thought about going on and getting a second degree in accounting, and now if it's going to involve finance, I'm not interested.
I don't blame you.
That's how much I actually hate it.
I do not blame you, even a little bit.
I don't know. I'm only halfway through the unit, and I'm like, eh. So, yeah, that's been my week because I've just been trying to hit that and force myself to do the work.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk about, what are you going to talk about this week?
Okay. So it's kind of a heavy subject, but it's current and it's in the news right now. And it's
which means I won't know anything about it.
Right?
Actually, this I have heard of.
What? Yeah. I mean, it's big, but it's concerning the deaths on Fort Hood and just basically the mismanagement and all of that good stuff. So my sources are KWTX News, NPR, ABC News, CNN, Washington Post, and the New York Daily News. So I'm going to start it with Vanessa Guillen because she's the whole reason I heard about it in the first place. I heard when she was missing and then followed the story through that. And then while she's missing, all of a sudden there's more and more popping up at Fort Hood and they keep being in the news. This person does that. Well, here was a death. Here was an accidental death during training. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean they pushed somebody too hard? Does that mean something else? So anyway, she wasn't the first issue on Fort Hood. And really, they've had issues for a while. Fort Hood is based near, it's an Army base, and it's near Killeen, Texas. Just to establish that. But it was her news that, it was her disappearance that made the news that reached everybody, which is why this kind of busted wide open in the media. So I'm going to start with that. April 22nd, 2020, Vanessa Guillen, a private first class who was about to be promoted to specialist, disappeared from her job in the small arms room. And her job was repairing small arms, which sounds really funny. When I was writing this, I was like, is there another way to put this? Of course, we're talking about weapons, but I have this image of somebody just in this room
with
fixing tiny arms.
Or doll arms.
Right.
Yes.
There were no cameras, so...
Of course not.
Of course not. Not in the parking lot, not anywhere. So several soldiers claimed they had seen her outside. The case ended up going cold because they're saying, no, we saw her at such and such. There were 3... depositions signed about this or whatever, and that ended up really confusing the matter because she disappeared. It wasn't seen by anybody else after work. And with them saying, well, I saw her somewhere else, it complicated it. So while she was missing, her family started speaking out. They said that she talked about having been sexually harassed on the base and having problems with it, being afraid to report it because she thought that it would impact her job and impact her work life, basically. I mean, and if you think about it, many of them are living on post. So they not only have to work with whoever the issue is, they're living in their vicinity. Yeah. They said that there was a big problem, that she hadn't reported it. They were saying that they thought her disappearance had something to do with this because it had been getting serious. And nobody's really taking them seriously, right? In the meantime, the Army does do some searching for her, I guess. I think after the family pushed and pushed and pushed, because they did search with dogs at one point. But then they declare her AWOL, which is actually what they do when soldiers go missing, which I think is amazing. It's not the Civil War or whenever this got started. They're not deserting because they don't want to fight in a battle. If they disappear off of a base where they're not in active war areas or something, you know, you're not going to consider that maybe it wasn't a desertion.
And I think AWOL, just absent without leave,
it is, but then they switch it to desertion after that.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of the people that were missing, and I don't remember for sure if she was listed as deserted after that, but they did switch them from AWOL to desertion. And it's like their shit's still at their house and they're not there.
Yeah. They're not.
They didn't desert. They would have taken their stuff with them. So anyway, her family goes to the press. They continue to plead for help. Fort Hood officials, whatever. She's gone. We think that she's run. Army spokespersons here after all of this, here in September of this year, after so many people had gone missing and died, they said, well, we just don't investigate deserters. We don't try to find them. It's not a top priority for us. I just think you send somebody to investigate. If their shit's in their apartment or their house or their, you know, whatever, then you think, all right, there might be some foul play.
Well, yeah, because that's like when anybody goes missing, I'm thinking of like teenagers. Mm-hmm. Did they run away? Well, when you go to their house, when you go to wherever they're staying, and all of their stuff is there.
Right. They didn't pack a backpack with their favorite items or their phone.
They didn't take their phone. They didn't take their wallet. They didn't take... That's generally means they didn't go voluntarily.
Right. So, I don't get it. I think that's a shitty way to treat our soldiers. But...
I agree.
Her remains ended up being found near the Leon River June 30th. She disappeared in April. They found her body in June. She'd been dismembered, buried, and then covered with cement. And they had actually searched with bloodhounds, and they had searched near that area, but the cement, the concrete, had covered that up. The scent, I think. So, when the news leaked that a body had been found in the area, specialist Aaron Robinson fled, and he committed suicide. So they were questioning him already. He was the last one to have seen her alive. As far as they knew, he was her superior. He was a specialist. She was one rank below him. She was about to be the same rank. One of her friends, while she was missing, had mentioned his name in relation to the sexual harassment to her parents when they pressed to say, well, tell us who it is. Like, tell us, do you know who she had problems with? He'd been mentioned. So anyway, he fled and he committed suicide. And they were pretty sure it was him anyway, but that made it more concrete. He killed her in the small arms room with a hammer. He beat her to death with a hammer in there.
So he cleaned up so thoroughly.
Did they even investigate in there?
I was like, there was no... You can't
I don't think so.
Kill someone like that and not leave some kind of trace evidence.
Right. Blood spatter.
Oh my God.
Mean, it's a hammer
light.
you're hitting.
They would have... Yeah. Oh my God.
So then he put her body in a container, drove out, picked up his girlfriend, her name is Cecily Aguilar, and got her to help him chop up the body with a hatchet and bury the remains, right? They ended up going out a couple days later to pour the cement over it, thinking, oh, wait, she might be found this way. Maybe it was in the news that they were searching for her or something with dogs out there. I don't know. So they cover her with the concrete. He's dead. So Aguilar is up for charges now for conspiracy to hide and destroy evidence. And an article I read really pissed me off. I think it was the ABC News one. And it was just this really sympathetic look at Cecily Aguilar. And it sounds like they were spinning it to be, you know, she was afraid of him. And so she went out and did all this. Well, he was living with her and her ex-boyfriend. And in fact, when he moved in with them, those two were still dating. And then she kind of ended up hooking up with this Aaron Robinson fellow. I mean, there was another guy in the house. How afraid was she of him if she was leaving her boyfriend for, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't buy it.
There's a thing with the media, and a woman is either a total bitch,
she's a hussy and a horrible person,
capable of anything, or she was so sweet and innocent.
Oh yeah, they spent a bunch of time interviewing her best friend, who was like, "Well, I don't believe she could do it, so there had to be a reason that she helped him do it." Okay, well, whatever. The thing is, with him dead, she can spin it any way she wants to.
Yeah, she can say whatever she
can't
wants.
argue, and neither can poor Vanessa Guillen.
No.
So I don't know. I don't feel like they're going to throw the book at her.
No.
Too bad. My thing is, so the military has now said, too, that, we don't believe that this murder had anything to do with the sexual harassment. I'm like, okay, so why did he lose it on her and kill her in their job post?
Yeah,
I would like a reason.
If he had been harassing her.
And why the hell do they think they can say this so thoroughly? Because he had a girlfriend?
No.
The harassment him going on before, he'd only been dating this Cecily person for a couple months or something like that. So the harassment preceded that. But anyway, the Army, oh no, they've doubled down. There's no evidence of sexual harassment having to do with this, and she didn't file any charges, and she didn't make any reports. Okay, well, why? Why do you think that is, dipshits? So anyway, that done. She's not the only Fort Hood soldier who met an untimely death there this year. In September, it was reported there had been 26 deaths of soldiers associated with the base in 2020.
26?
Now, these aren't all homicides or anything, but yeah, 26 deaths. So let me see.
Holy sheep shit.
Compared to other years, in 2016 there were 37 deaths, 29 in 2017, 28 in 2018, and 38 in 2019. So we're talking, I think that the number of soldiers on this base is almost 27,000.
Were there any comparisons to other bases?
Yes, and I will get to that here in a bit.
Okay.
So of this year's deaths, 5 were homicides. 8 were deemed accidental deaths. 2 of those drownings. Which one of them, the guy disappeared. They found his body the next day in the lake. And I'm like, and we're just going to assume that's an accidental drowning and he was there by himself and just accidentally, whatever. 6 died from suicide. 2 of an illness. 5 were undetermined and are still pending investigation as of the last update I found, which was September of this year.
Okay.
So I couldn't find any updates on it. I imagine they do like an annual review, I found. So,
okay.
But that one hadn't hit until May of this year for 2019. So there'll probably be more information. And hey, I have no idea if there's been more deaths or what. So of the 6 suicides, 1 was Robinson, who'd killed Guillen. 1 was a man named Elder Fernandez, who was found hanged to death from a tree. It was deemed a suicide, though he had filed sexual contact charges that had been closed as unsubstantiated. His family feels he would not have committed suicide, says he had just re-enlisted. The news reports didn't give much information. What I wanted to know was, so they said that a superior officer ended up dropping him off at his house because his battery had died in his car. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have that ride. And this was just hours before he was found dead. If the tree wasn't on his property, how did he get out to the tree if his car was dead?
Right.
And, there wasn't very much information. So I'm like, is this a suspicious death and it's just another case of the Army people being like, or what? So anyway, that one really stood out to me because he had also had sexual harassment issues. And, his family still backed the sexual harassment, even though it was found unsubstantiated, I'll put in quotes. So I'm just curious, where was he dead? Was the tree on his property? If so, that would make sense, but it didn't sound like it. So I don't know. 2 of the accidental deaths were drownings, like I said. Of the murders, 3 appear unconnected to the Army base, other than it being soldiers from the base who were killed. There was 1 guy who was shot and killed with 2 other women in his home. He was found dead in his home. There was a guy who was shot at a strip bar and made his way to a convenience store and died there. And, so...
Because apparently guns and boobies are a bad combination.
I guess. The testosterone is just flowing, You think they'd be in a good mood.
One would think.
The one his name is Gregory Waddell Morales, was still being investigated, so there was no news about who had killed him. His body was found by canines searching for Guillen, who was still missing at the time.
Oh.
This soldier had actually been reported missing August of 2019. So technically, even though he's counted in this, I mean, it was a 2019 death, but they just found the body this year. So they had to identify him using dental records.
Did they have a cause of death?
They didn't say. So, but they are saying foul play.
Okay.
So he was murdered. He had been declared AWOL and then listed as a deserter again when he went missing. But when he went missing, he was only a few days away from his discharge date. He was already leaving the Army.
And it doesn't make any sense, because if you did that, you would lose all your benefits.
Yeah, I know. And yet they didn't look into that one. So just going to harp on that here because this really irritates me.
I can understand. I do understand if someone in today's Army, if they say if someone deserts, we don't pursue it. I understand not pursuing and tracking it down and prosecuting them. But if someone disappears,
but look into a disappearance.
Yes,
don't assume that they deserted.
Yeah.
How many reasons are there to desert these days? I'm sure there are reasons, including some of the stuff we're talking about here. You know, sexual harassment. They won't do anything about it. You turn them in, you get abused at your job because of it, something like that, right? Like, okay, I can see leaving then, but come on. Anyway, I'm curious. It is being investigated. They have come in, the higher ups in the Army and whatever, and in the armed forces in general, there's federal involvement, and they're investigating. I'd like to know if they're going to open up and if they're going to relook at the suicides. And I will say the suicide death's not unusual. In fact, it was less than other years for this year. So, you know, that's not why I'm saying look into the suicides, but I just feel like it doesn't seem like they investigate jack shit.
Wasn't there something in the news not too long ago about some people being relieved of command here?
Yes. And so I'll get to that at the end too.
Okay. Everything I'm like, wait, but what about...
Wait, but the news!
It's like, I'll get there. Just be patient. I have no patience. Anybody who knows me knows this.
But yeah, I want to know if they're going to look into accidental drownings where nobody else was there. And, you know, and this hanging of somebody, anyway, who had reported sexual assault.
Yeah, so what did he do? Just took the bus? Could you take me to a tree somewhere?
Yeah, I need to go to some random place with a tree. But, I mean, there could be more information. Like I said, I just couldn't find enough information to even form an opinion about it. So, but it had been declared a suicide officially. So, KWTX 10 News did a piece showing death rates for previous years, and they compared the number of deaths on Fort Hood to other large bases. The numbers from them were as follows. In 2019, there were 15 accidental deaths, 5 deaths due to illness, 17 suicides, and 1 that's still pending determination. In 2018, there were 8 accidental deaths, 3 deaths due to illness, 16 suicides. You see, the numbers are way higher.
Yeah.
And 1 still undetermined 2 years later, which I don't understand. In 2017, there were 10 accidental deaths, 2 homicides, 2 dead due to illness, 14 suicides, 1 undetermined still. In 2016, 16 were accidental deaths, 4 died due to illness, 17 were suicides. So, no homicides that year.
And how does that compare to other bases?
In the comparisons to other similar-sized bases, Fort Stewart, which had about the same number of people, I think we're looking at 27,000, and this one was like 23,000 or something like that, if I remember. They had 13 total deaths, 1 of those homicides, 6 suicides. Fort Campbell had 15 deaths, 7 of those suicides, 3 homicides. In other words, our Army bases just aren't doing great. Fort Bragg, which reports twice the soldier population as the other ones I've mentioned, they're all 20-something. Fort Bragg has like 50,000.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Had 24 total deaths, with only 1 of those a homicide, 9 of those suicides. So their numbers were better.
Way better.
Per population, right? Fort Hood was also the site, if you remember, of a mass shooting November 5th, 2009. Major Nadal Malik Hassan, an Army psychologist, shot and killed 13 people plus an unborn child. They don't count that in the 13 people, I guess. Injured 32 others. He's received the death sentence for this, by the way. April 2nd, 2014, specialist Ivan Lopez killed 3 and injured 16 on Fort Hood before killing himself. Other than the 3 mass shootings Other than these mass shootings, 6 others have occurred since 1995 on U.S. bases in general. Some of these in other countries, some of them here. The stats put together with the suicide rate should confirm something needs to be done about the mental health of our soldiers, period. And about whatever the support structures are on these bases. They're apparently non-existent. I don't know. And obviously, this is something that people have been talking about a long time. We all know that they don't get the care they need for PTSD. We all know that they don't get the support they need to be going through this stuff. Old drum, still beating it.
Yep.
But, I mean, it's not getting better. And I will say that Lopez, that last shooting, he was under care for psychiatric issues stemming from having been in Iraq. Yeah, he was already under psychiatric care, and it was apparently some verbal disagreement, and he went back and shot the people there.
And I know there's a higher rate of people are coming back from the Gulf, and there's a higher suicide rate.
Yeah.
From people who've been active duty over there.
Well,
and then they got sent over, for a while they were being sent over again and again. And their tours were being extended, and they were serving another over there, and it was just too much.
And when we first went over there, we weren't prepared at all. They didn't have, because I knew somebody who was sent out there first, you know, and they didn't have the desert camel.
Oh.
They didn't have shoes. They didn't have water. They didn't have, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was a mess. At the beginning of this month, oh, and by the way, I don't know if it's Ivan or Ivan Lopez.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that, because Ivan's kind of an unusual name for somebody who was from, I think he was from Puerto Rico.
Oh.
And the I is pronounced E in Spanish. So I'm just throwing that out there in case I'm butchering his name. The thing with him was he asked for a leave form and was told he had to come back. He came back with a gun. But he had some issues. Again, he was having these mental issues. Then his mom died. It took them 2 weeks to approve him, or what was it? No, 5 days to approve his 24-hour leave to just go out when his mom died. So they had to hold the services and everything and wait to hear when he would get back. So he was already upset about that. So anyway, it sounds like there was a lot more to this leave issue. And there had been something else, and he was trying to get leave for something else. And
that's tough.
And so, yeah, he lost it, right? Beginning this month, it's reported the Army is punishing 14 senior officers at Fort Hood following ongoing investigations into the high death rate at the base. Army Secretary McCarthy has stated the base issues, quote, are directly related to leadership failures. Though article headlines state the commanders and other leaders have been fired, that's not my understanding of how the military works. You don't just fire people. So it's when I looked into it further, there have been suspensions and some have been relieved of duty. The big guy, the commander or whatever of the base, no. The commander of the base, I forget the specifics of what they've done, but again, he's still in the military. I don't know if he got stripped of rank. I don't know what. It said this usually ruins a career, and I'm like,
well, no
good?
shit.
It's been stated that leadership on the base have not been doing their jobs in relation to investigating and handling sexual misconduct, looking into missing soldiers, and in general not taking care of the welfare of the soldiers serving there. A program called SHARP, or Sexual Harassment, Assault Response and Prevention, already exists on the base. But the investigations show that they didn't really implement it well. They didn't educate people. They didn't make sure that there was training. They did, so SHARP hasn't even been used to its full extent. This was supposed to, solve the sexual assault problems, and they kept again and again and again saying and making sure that everybody has a fair, that everybody can serve safely and bullshit. So that it said that those reporting crimes feared retaliation, that they would lose jobs or deal with issues, especially if the ones perpetrating it were superiors. They state that superiors were aware there was an ongoing issue and this wasn't going well, but did nothing about it. The investigation and changes will be ongoing, which possible charges brought against the enlisted officers involved. They're still considering charges. One of the reasons the board is given for the growth and problems on the base is 2 decades of leadership focusing on constant deployments, which diverted their attention from soldiers' welfare. Yeah. They stated there had been failures to investigate, this is a quote, crimes and lack of confidence in punishing offenders, and that this had, quote, led to a permissive environment for sexual assault and harassment. They also concluded that the Army criminal investigators had no experience and were stretched too thin. They questioned 500 female soldiers, finding that 59 incidents of sexual assault or harassment had been reported, but that 93 of those women had credible accounts of sexual assault. Of those 500, I questioned how many, being sat in a room, came forward and said that they'd had anything. Yeah. Why should they trust these people, this board, this panel, whatever it is, investigating them any more than anyone else? So I think it's ridiculous that they think that shoving 500 females from this base into a room and asking if they've been sexually assaulted was going to net them accurate numbers.
Especially if they had seen what happened to other women who tried to report it.
Abso-fucking-lutely. So to me, it actually just pissed me off more that they did this. And then my other thing to nitpick about this is they didn't question any men. I mentioned Elder Fernandez. Mm-hmm. He had been reporting sexual assault too. So first of all, this is the military still being absolutely dense. Yes. Thinking that you can just sit a woman down across from you and she's going to say, oh yeah, absolutely, I've had these problems, and be completely comfortable talking to some stranger about that. Bullshit. And also not acknowledging that men are having issues too on these bases.
You should make a note to look at this a year from now.
I should.
And update us.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously if something big breaks in between
right.
now and then
we can mention it.
But it would be interesting to do a follow-up and see if they follow up, if they follow through, if they try to make changes. Real changes.
Yeah. That would be good, wouldn't it? My thing, so yeah, I get to this, but this isn't just this base.
No.
This is an ongoing problem. It's a problem in all of the arms of armed services, not just the Army. Army does tend to have, be more problematic. But if they're just gonna, fine, do away with the officers at this base, if that's what makes it you feel like you're doing something about it, I don't think it's going to do anything about it. If there's one thing I've learned in these business courses, it's that corporate or company, and I'm sure this works with military and politics too, that the culture leaks down from the top. The people at the top set the culture. Management then enforces that culture. Them wiping these people out.
And who's the commander-in-chief? And what's his opinion on women?
Absolutely. But I mean, this has always been a problem in the armed services well before our commander-in-chief.
And I remember, this was a few years ago, and a few means 5 to 20. There was a woman I worked with whose husband was in the Army, and they were having some, and I thought that everything was fine with them. They were married, they had a couple of kids, and she confided in me one day that they were having some issues in their marriage. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she got specific about what it was, just that they were having some serious issues. And I said, well, can't you get couples counseling? Can't you go to therapy? She's like, no, because he's in the Army and he's an officer. And if they find out about it, it'll be detrimental to his career.
I've heard that a billion times. Yeah.
And I was like, that is so stupid. I said, well, can you go outside of the Army? Can you just go to a civilian? And she was like, I don't know if we could afford that.
No. Well, and I've seen this with police too. You know, like an officer is afraid to get counseling because it will look bad. Oh, so you have issues. When it's absolutely what they should be doing.
Now, I know that it seems like there's more awareness that if they're involved in something, right, then they have to, they're required to do a certain amount of counseling. But sometimes life affects you, and it's not that your job has affected you. It's not like you, wow.
I know, it's really windy outside.
It's not like there was an accident at work and so you're getting therapy because of that. It could be because your parent died. It could be because your child died. It could be you got a divorce. It could be any number of things that aren't job related, but it's still going to affect you.
Yeah. Yeah. I could have a whole conversation on recent stuff on that lately, but I won't because it's not mine to talk about. Yep. But one article stated that there had been a 3% increase in reports of sexual assault in the U.S. military in 2019. Again, that's the report that they published in May.
Right.
So there's no numbers for 2020. There were 7,825 reports of sexual assault last year involving service members. There's typically a sexual assault prevalence survey each year, but for some reason they didn't do it in 2019. And this, So they couldn't say if the increase was due to more crimes occurring or simply more reporting. And again, all of this is always going to have that disclaimer on it that that reporting is only as accurate as
right.
how many people are willing to come forward on something like that. There were no numbers on how many of these were soldier-on-soldier crimes. I couldn't find anything on that. But 937 can be removed. It was from that particular equation because they were from civilians and foreign nationals reporting a service member having assaulted them. 652 reports were for incidents before military service, so I don't understand why that was included. So they just questioned everybody, and if they said they'd ever had...
okay.
Yeah. So those can be removed, but that still leaves a huge chunk, you know. What was it? 6,000 something people reports involving service members.
Staggering numbers.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that survey this year and how numbers stack up for 2020. And of course, 2020 having been such a rough year, I would expect that, there'll be some bigger numbers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would expect so.
I'm hoping this Vanessa Guillen's death and all these other people's deaths means that they look whiter.
Yes.
Our military has been broken in a lot of ways for a long time, and there are a lot of changes that need to be made. And they cannot be made by the soldiers that are going in.
No.
They have to be made from the top down.
I agree.
Basically everything in this country is just fucked and needs to be fixed from the top down, from, everything.
Yes.
Police departments, the military. It's all broken.
Education.
Yeah. So I can't help but watch anything that's about the fall of a civilization and be like, man, we're prolonging this shit way longer than anybody else did. You gotta change things and keep up with the times, or else it's all gonna crumble at some point.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic books, not so entertaining anymore. It's like, shit. All right, well, I'm going to talk about something a little less... Okay, switching subjects. I am going to talk about Arkansas's most haunted house.
Ooh.
Yes, this one I'm actually like, I want to go there. This one could actually be haunted. I'm not going to blame the whole thing on teenagers. Although later, I will have a sibling reference.
Okay.
So my sources are KATV News. I'm like, this one is just a bunch of, it's the website address. I can't read what it is. The website for the Allen House in, I believe it's pronounced Monticello in Arkansas, because I asked my resident Arkansas expert and said
Arkansan.
Right, yes. And I said, thing two, is it pronounced in Arkansas, is it pronounced Monticello or Monticello? And she looked at me and she said, Monticello. Okay.
That's like here, if you ask me how something that is a Spanish name is pronounced, I'm just going to tell you it's pronounced wrong. Buena Vista drives me absolutely fucking nuts, but they did actually purposely name it the wrong name, but it still drives me nuts.
Buny.
If we're going to take somebody else's language, the least we could do is pronounce it correctly. You may proceed.
All right.
Soapbox over.
Also, my other sources were Arkansas.com and SoutheastArkansasToday.com. And there was an article by Paige Cushman that was published just a year ago at Halloween. It was October 31st, 2019. So this Monticello is about 90 miles southeast of Little Rock, nearish Mississippi, 50-ish miles from the Mississippi border. In 2005, this couple, Mark and Rebecca Spencer, moved from Oklahoma to Monticello. And apparently, when Mark told Rebecca they were moving, because he was for a teaching position in the college, she said, I will move anywhere with you except Alaska or Arkansas. So, of course, that's where the job was. So she was driving down North Main Street, and she falls in love with this house. It's called the Allen House. It is a Queen Anne and Gothic-style mansion.
Ooh, I probably would love looking at this house.
Mansion being the key word here. It was
that
all overgrown. All the greens, the lawn, everything was all overgrown, and it was very run down. Here's the thing. It's an 8,500 square foot house. And I can't imagine buying an 8,500 square foot house for myself, my husband, and my 2 children.
I could have, maybe if I had 20 children, then that would be good. But
And he worked at the local college. I'm like, for the mob? Their finances are none of my business.
Was it run down though?
It was.
So maybe that's why he could have.
Possibly. Well, it took him 2 years to negotiate buying the house.
Wow.
Because
in the meantime, they just camped on the grounds.
No, that's what you or I would have done. They actually they got another place to live and she was like, if I'm going to live here, I have to live in this house. I'm like, that is just, other people's marriages, sometimes you look at and go, how does that work? That's another topic for another day. But in the meantime, it had been, in between when the Allens lived there, it had been a school, it had been an apartment complex, it had been a private residence. And when it was an apartment complex, the tenants did report paranormal incidents while they lived there. And while they were trying to buy it, over those 2 years, the grounds were let completely go and the front porch caved in. So the people, I don't know, I never was able to figure out why the people didn't want to sell it.
Yeah.
The people who owned it didn't
want to sell it. Or they wanted more.
I have no idea. It's like, I can't imagine what upkeep costs. So.
What's the thing? Not only could this college professor afford this mansion, but the cost to fix it up had to have been equal to buying it.
Yes. So in 2007, here's what killed me. When they moved there in 2007, there were still some pieces of original furniture in the house that they refurbished.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's some sturdy fucking furniture. And I'm like, and how could it still be there? But they also found artifacts that let them piece together some of the history of the Allen family. So
That's awesome.
I will get to this. So this in 1890, Joe Lee Allen married Katie McKinnon, and he owned a livery stable. Later sold cars. So he owned a livery stable and he sold horses and mules and I don't know what else. And then later sold cars. He owned the Allen Hotel. He owned a school, and he owned, I love this one. He owned a hearse that he rented out when people needed a horse-drawn hearse.
That's convenient.
I was like, that's a smart businessman.
Yeah.
A rental hearse company. So they had a daughter named Lonnie Lee in 1891, Liddell in 1894, and Liddell is the one who's going to be of interest to us later. They had a son, Walter, who died at 9 months old. And then they had a daughter named Louie, Lewie, in 1897. So it's Joe Lee and his wife and 3 daughters. So in 1906, he commissioned a mansion, got an architect to design this huge mansion to impress his clients and celebrate / flaunt, that is my word, his social status and his income.
Just celebrate his social status.
Yes. Hola, I am better than you. Side note, this made me lose any sympathy I might have. It's not his story. It's not Joe Lee's story. But he kept a bear chained up in the backyard of his hotel for an unspecified amount of time.
Aww.
At some point, he realized, not that it was cruel to the bear, he realized it would be a huge liability if the bear got loose, so he shot it and had it made into a coat. Because there's a photo on the website of him wearing the coat. I'm like, what a fucking dick.
Yeah. Poor bear.
Right? And I wrote in my notes, what a piece of shit. I get really opinionated in my notes. I don't always convey everything I have written down because I'm like,
researching this stuff at Fort Hood, I was just getting madder and madder and madder, and every time they quoted the upper leadership, I was like, so anyway.
Well, and then as a major investor, he had the opportunity to name a town. Like, how much money do you have to spend to get them to say, here, Shannon, you name the town whatever you want? He doesn't name it after his family name. He doesn't name it after his wife. He names it after Liddell, his middle daughter.
Oh, no.
I'm thinking, what kind of family dynamic does that lead to when you name that? Well, I can see not naming the town Louie, but But you know, I'm just like that. I thought that was weird.
Maybe she was named after his mom.
No, because I read his mom's name and
Damn it.
I don't remember what it was, but it was not Liddell, which is spelled like it could be pronounced ladle, but it is Liddell.
I hope it was ladle.
This is my daughter, Ladle.
This is it. Here's our other daughter, Slotted Spoon.
And this is my son, Spork. So, anyway, in November of 1914, at age 20, Liddell married a man named Boyd Bonner, who was 23 years old and owned a billiards hall in Dumas, Arkansas. I'm like, I guess owning a billiards hall was a big deal. I don't know.
Compared to everything else?
I don't know. So they had a son, Alan, on their first anniversary in 1915. This is also not Alan's story. He became a journalist. He was just from the get-go. Journalism was his passion. He became a journalist and a reporter. Unfortunately, he died of, I believe, pneumonia in New York City in early 1944. He was like 20-some years old. He wasn't, so in October of 1917, Joe Lee is killed while demonstrating a car to a potential buyer in Collins, Arkansas. And I'm like, I don't know how that... I really wanted more detail on that.
Yeah.
But in 1927, Liddell, who was then 33, was granted a divorce in Arkansas. And at this point, you're
Those
like...
were pretty rare then, weren't they?
They were not common.
Okay.
And it never really did say why. It is really funny, and I know I've said this before, because if you read... if you're reading about a haunted house, and you're reading about it... say we were reading about a haunted house in Colorado Springs, and you go to the town booster website, coloradosprings.com. They are going to whitewash and make everything look really, really pretty.
Yeah.
And you have to really go to a lot of other sources to kind of sniff out what might have been happening. In 1948, Liddell moved home to care for her poor widowed mother. Possibly, now I found out later, her mother in sometime in the 40s broke her hip and had surgery and recovered from it. Yeah. So it could have been around this time that was why she moved home, because her mother did not sound like...
I mean, that's a big deal now still, once that hip gets broken.
Yes. So while she is home, she runs into her high school sweetheart. You gotta love this name, Prentice Hemingway Savage.
Oh, I do love this name.
Right? Somebody out there needs to write about Prentice. Prentice Hemingway Savage.
I hope he did awesome thing. He wasted that name, didn't he?
He did. So anyway, he was back visiting Arkansas, and they crossed paths, and I made this note. People think this only started happening when Facebook was invented, that people ran into you run into your old high school sweetheart on Facebook, and the next thing you know, you're moving to Texas. To be with a man you haven't seen in 40 years.
I brought my Texan here.
Yes,
He's right here. So, we don't have to go there.
But you hear about that happening on Facebook all the time. I've met the love of my life.
Isn't it usually before Facebook, it was at reunions?
Yes. So anyway, he was married and living in Minnesota working for Texaco Oil. And one of the sources said they met at the horse races in Hot Springs.
Oh.
So they had dated in high school and until he moved to Texas in 1913. So they began writing to each other. And they have one of the letters on the website, which I thought was interesting. Now, there was a cache of letters that Mark Spencer found when they're working on the house. In the attic, under a board, he finds all these letters. Now, the number is it ranges between 50 and 90.
Okay, wow.
Right? Even on the website that the Spencers produced, there are different numbers. In one place it's 50, in another it's 90, and then in another it's 82. So anyway, he found these letters hidden under the floorboards with a bottle of rum, because apparently Liddell had a drinking problem that nobody ever talked about.
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't.
No. So one of the very first letters, if not the first letter from Prentice to Liddell said, "Oh yes, I'm home and it was so wonderful to hear from you, blah, blah, blah. I told my wife that I had heard from you and showed her your letter, and this was apparently..."
Well, this is going to escalate.
Yeah, apparently, no, it was to demonstrate that it was all above board, because that first letter didn't say anything suggestive. But to say, yes, we are not doing anything wrong. I've told my wife about it.
I am wifely. And...
and she's fine with us corresponding and keeping in touch. Keeping in touch, not touching. But
maybe you just didn't understand the difference between those two.
Perhaps. So, and apparently he made reference later that his wife was very cold and didn't care for him. I mean, you know that old saw.
Oh, yeah.
We've all heard that. So they were plotting. Oh, and he even said his wife would probably forget he had even told her. So they plotted for the affair went on for like 8 or 9 months. So they were plotting for Prentice to leave his wife and run away with Liddell. And at one point he faked a business trip and she faked going to visit a friend, and they went on a 2-week road trip. And there was even, in with the letters, there was a map with the roads that they took highlighted in red, and they circled the towns that they had stopped at.
Boy, people really hadn't learned how not to put stuff in writing yet.
No.
Oh, wait, they still haven't.
No, they still have not. Because I'm always saying that person wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
It's people who have stuff on their phone. We won't even go there. This is the equivalent of that, though. The map was found in with all these letters.
Okay.
So in October of this year, Prentice wrote to his sister Genevieve, unless you like the French pronunciation, which is Geneviève, which I think is prettier than Genevieve, but what do I know? That he was having trouble moving forward with the divorce because he had stocks and government bonds that were held jointly, and his wife knew about them, so he wouldn't be able to get out of the marriage and just take these stocks and bonds. Yeah. So in November, never could find out why. In November, Genevieve sent that letter to Liddell. In late November.
Okay. What? Huh.
Yeah, why? What possesses you to, I mean, obviously, I don't know, and it was unclear in some of the stuff I was reading whether Genevieve knew about the affair and supported it because she didn't like his wife, or whether Genevieve knew about the affair and was offended by it, and to kind of drive a wedge between them and say, haha, he's never going to leave her. Unclear. So, after months of the affair, Prentice did decide he couldn't leave his wife and lose his social standing, and it was right before Christmas, and apparently Liddell's mother, that poor widow who needed looking after, has this huge Christmas party every year on Christmas Day or Christmas night, and everybody who is anybody in town is there. So Liddell, and this is a direct quote, Liddell went up to her room with a glass of punch and a plate of snacks, later found in the room and preserved by the Spencers, and poisoned herself with mercury cyanide. The next day, Liddell was hospitalized. Mercury cyanide was an over-the-counter treatment for syphilis at the time, and wasn't strong enough to kill her quickly. She spent a week in the hospital before dying there on January 2nd of 1949. So she basically poisoned herself. She tried to commit suicide on Christmas Day during her mother's party, and it took her a whole week to die.
Oh, jeez.
Right?
Well, that's a mistake. Isn't that anybody's biggest fear in doing something like that?
Yeah.
Oh.
So what's interesting was they had a very glossy, whitewashed obituary in the paper. Because they had someone, I can't remember which article it was in, they had pulled, what's the word I want? Census records. They pulled census records, so they know she lived in Dumas. She lived in Indiana. She lived in Fort Worth. She lived in Memphis. But her obit said she lived her whole life in Monticello and was possessed of a charming personality and lovable disposition. She believed that to be loved was to love others. She practiced her philosophy of life in her everyday living, never feeling that anything was too hard to do for a friend. It didn't mention the suicide. Didn't mention.
And then she died of consumption.
Yes. Apparently, she had a big alcohol problem because it was a topic in the letters. Because she apparently had said she was trying to quit.
Wow. And
he was like, good, I don't think it's good for you to drink as much as you do.
Oh, maybe he just thought a lady shouldn't drink that much.
That could well be. And apparently, there were also letters in there from some of her friends. So they weren't all letters from Prentice.
Maybe that's confusion. There were 50 letters from
that
Prentice,
could be.
And then...
But 92
42
total documents. But one of the letters, one of her oldest friends, was like, yes, I can't help but compare Prentice to the last one. And then there was Billy Bob, and then there was the Mystery Man. And I'm like...
She called her friend a slut.
Kinda.
Wow. That's bitchy.
Well, yeah. So, Liddell's mother sealed the room, and it remained untouched until the house was sold 30 years later. And the Spencers speculated that Liddell's mother wanted to keep her spirit locked in the room. And I was like, what sense does that make? I mean, she didn't go in and take anything out. She didn't change the room. She locked it up and left it there.
That happens a lot, though.
That I get, but it was the whole to keep her spirit locked.
Yeah. Well,
who knows?
Who wants her roaming around the house getting all drunk as a ghost?
So there's a reference to the fact that room was the master bedroom, and it is also the Spencer's master bedroom. And I'm like, I don't know that I would want to have my bedroom where someone killed themselves.
Nope. Because
what did I say? It was a 8,500 square foot house. I'm thinking you could find another bedroom. That would creep me out.
Maybe there weren't any other bedrooms. It was all studies.
Yeah, that just is creepy. That's just creepy. So after the Spencers moved in, when they finally got to move in and they started doing renovations, doing all this stuff, I can't even imagine that refurbishing that house wasn't a full-time job.
It had to be.
I mean, especially if at one point it had been divided into apartments. All I can think of is, how many kitchens do you need?
Yeah.
So you've got to make it one house again. So anyway, they started seeing their 5-year-old son in places he couldn't be. So they believed that this was doppelganger activity, which paranormal experts define as a spirit taking a living person's form. So it's like your son is playing in the living room and then you see him over here in the kitchen.
Are you mad? I am your daughter.
And this one killed me up. While they originally thought fumes or mold was blurring their vision or causing hallucinations, move the fuck out, paranormal investigators told them the house was haunted. And I'm like, because instead of calling mold remediation, they called Ghostbusters?
Because their eyes were blurry. It was probably mold.
If I thought it was mold or fumes, A, I would get ventilation. B, I would look for the mold. My first step wouldn't be...
That's just some heavy denial because, what was it, 8,500 square feet or something crazy amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, just think of what it would cost to remove black mold.
Toxic mouse poop. Toxic powder.
At least it wasn't one of those snake houses. Those freak me out.
Snake houses?
Where you see the video and there's a couple that's been driven from their home because it's overwhelmed with snakes that have formed a nest underneath the house.
I have not seen this, nor will I seek it out.
Well, if I come across one,
I know it's going to show up
in your way. I find them absolutely horrific.
Yes. So anyway, the Spencers say they have never felt threatened, but they do. One of their sons won't use the ground floor bathroom because in 2009 he heard an unfamiliar voice say his name while he was in there.
You're just manning your own business, peeing. And somebody says your name.
Johnny. Now, this is where I will point out he did have a sibling. I'm not saying that the sibling did it, but I will point out he did have... Now, your parents aren't likely to go, let's go try to scare the shit out of Johnny, but your sibling...
I feel like as a mother, you're just so used to being bombarded in the bathroom that you just be like, not now.
Right?
You wouldn't even be scared. You'd
And
just be
little
like,
kids-
uh-uh.
And little kids do weird voices all the time just because they're playing with their voice. You know, they're talking like, you know, they're just doing weird, funny stuff. So, Rebecca has seen a dark figure that resembles a cowboy that she calls the Shadow Man. Now, see, this is where I want more detail because I'm like, how does he look like a cowboy? Is he wearing the hat?
He has the shadow of a hat.
Apparently.
And really tight jeans.
She has seen his... I do love a cowboy in tight jeans.
Stop distracting. I'm totally distracted.
She has seen his boots walking in the bathroom and has seen him walk out the front door. She says she's seen him 5 times in 12 years. Because when the article was written, they'd been in the house for 12 years. They've identified the ghosts of Joe Lee, the guy who built it, Katie. Who the heck was Katie? Oh, that was the mom. That was his wife. It was spelled differently. Alan Bonner, which was Liddell's son. Liddell, a baby, and a man with a gruff voice. And I'm like, why did all these people come back here to haunt the place? Because 2 of these people didn't die here. Joe Lee died when he was demonstrating a car.
Yeah, but he loved his house. Okay. It was an exhibition of his success.
Apparently. But Alan Bonner, the son...
And the dude with the rough voice is just some random ghost that came out of nowhere. They built the house on his grave.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Caucasian ghosts.
They've seen untouched rocking chairs move on their own. They hear footsteps in the attic and the faint sound of a baby crying. And guests have said they felt touched by invisible forces. And here's something. People, get a fucking grip, okay? From the Facebook page, this year, today, I looked at their Facebook page. Motherfuckers still send Christmas cards to Liddell.
Weird.
If you would like to send a Christmas card to someone you don't know,
overseas in the military,
send it to someone in the military. Send it to someone in a nursing home. Send it to someone in an institution,
a hospital, a children's hospital.
Don't send it to a dead person that you never met. I mean, good God, and that just made me go, what is wrong with people? Seriously. And they write letters to Liddell in these cards.
You know what? People are weird. People marry serial killers in prison.
So, I don't get that either. So they do tours around Halloween, tours of the house. Obviously not this year. And they have something called the Nightmare Maze that they set up on the grounds. And anyone who can't complete it has to agree to have yes, they die. But they also have to agree to have their picture taken with a sign out front that says they were too scared to finish the maze.
Rude.
And Mark Spencer has written a book about the house that's for sale on Amazon, about the love affair between Liddell and...
Oh, sorry, I got really confused there for a second. I was like, the house is for sale on Amazon?
His book. His book is for sale on Amazon. I figured it out
after a second. I am very sleep deprived this week.
He also has written other books, also available on Amazon. I'm not shilling for Mark Spencer. Just, if ever anything was going to be haunted, I'm like, okay, I get Liddell spirit could still be here. I don't get why Joe Lee and Alan Bonner would return there, but I would visit here to see for myself. This is a place I would like, all right, let's put that on the list.
Yeah.
Let's check that out.
Go on a road trip like Liddell.
Yeah. A little road trip. The Spencers do claim that the most skeptical visitors are the ones who generally experience the paranormal phenomena in their home.
Good. Fun times.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Should.
Sign me up, buddy.
Bud.
So that is the most haunted house in Arkansas, in Monticello. My Lord, that wind is just... I expect to see Dorothy and a dog fly by.
I know something hit this side of the house, and I'm like, there's not even anything over there. What just hit the house?
I'm looking at your Christmas decorations in fear.
Oh, they are bolted down hardcore.
I have met your husbands.
Yeah. It'll be, if anything falls, it'll be like the baby Yoda that's new out there. Just Yoda down. or whatever his name was on. Oh, I did finish Mandalorian too. Oh. But I can't, there's spoilers in the
That's
final
true.
one. It was good though. I think that Jon Favreau is like the gift to all nerds.
Yes.
But also beyond that, because he makes stuff I like to watch too.
Maybe I'll have to give it another try.
I'm not saying you'd like it if you didn't like it before though.
It just did not hold my interest.
Well, but like I watched Four Christmases. I think that he produced that one too. It's got Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn. And they never go to family Christmas, and they travel, and then they get fogged in at the airport, and they end up on the news. So they're caught, they're busted, and so then they have to go to both their parents are divorced,
of course.
So it's 4 different houses, and Jon Favreau plays Vince Vaughn's brother. Anyway, we've been doing since we watched it the other day. Vince Vaughn's really good at the gag.
He's really talented.
Oddly, yes. I still haven't watched Freaky, so really, I finally watched the preview for it, though. But yeah, just that it's pretty damn funny. So,
I want to say I watched it, but
we usually watch it every year around Christmas. We pull out the Christmas, because I don't allow Christmas movie watching. Just kidding. They can watch it without me.
Die Hard.
We watched Die Hard while we did the tree.
We have our tree up. So today is... What is today? The 20th. Today's December 20th that we're recording this. And our tree is up and it has lights on it.
Our tree is up and has ornaments and lights on it, but the lights are part of it because it's a fake tree.
Ours too.
But
we don't have any ornaments on it yet.
I still have to watch Gremlins, and I still have to watch Black Christmas. And we still have to watch Scrooged. I watch A Christmas Story Christmas morning.
I have not watched Die Hard yet.
Shame.
And last year I got mad because I couldn't find it streaming for free. So I bought all 5?
Because it's 2 of them are Christmas movies.
The first 2.
And then the third one has Sam Jackson in downtown. It's New York.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one is The Hacker, The Fire Sale. With
I think it might only have the first 4 because I don't think I've seen the 5th one. The 5th one is with his son, right?
Yeah, as an adult.
I heard it's
not great, but
well, none of them were after the first one. Well, anyway, we should let people. We should wrap it up for this week.
Yeah, so thank you for listening. You can find us on our website at www.mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. You can email us.
Please, email us your ideas. Email us your spooky places, your unsolved mystery, your unsettling incidences.
We live for the first day we get A, an email from anybody, and B, an email from a stranger.
Oh, yes.
That will be the most exciting day ever. But that's mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook, which is where we post the actual links to our sources. Instead of just giving you the title of them, we post pictures, we post various things like that, articles that have something to do with something that we've talked about, yada, yada, yada. So look for us there. That's Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. And thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.